Hey, good morning. Today I'm going to do a test run on a project. I'm doing a demonstration tomorrow for one of the high schools. And I'm going to take a couple of blocks and turn them into a lidded box. And so this little exercise is just to see if I've got all my steps down pat before I go in front of a crowd. So to start with, I need to mount a woodworm screw in my stronghold chuck. And this little ring is designed to just fit over top of the stronghold chuck when it has the woodworm screw in. And what it actually does is it gives us a larger surface area for the blank to rest against. It's just takes up a little bit of the space so it doesn't have to screw in so far. Plus it gives us a nice large diameter driving force, which helps. I mean, it could just drive off of the chuck jaws itself, but just a little tip I learned a few years back that if you put a bigger diameter on it, it actually drives the wood a little more securely. There we go. Plank of wood is right up against the drive block. We'll use the tailstock support just very gently, just a little bit for tools I'm going to use to do this project include a bowl gouge, a box scraper, a drill for setting the depth, and we'll probably use a spindle gouge, and that's about it. We'll see how many tools I end up using. Out of the line of fire, get my face shield. Out of the line of fire, get my face shield. And we'll start with a bowl gouge. Well, we got it round. One of the things we want to do is make sure that this block is slightly bigger than this block so that it'll do a little bit of an overhang, and I think we're okay there. I need to put a recess on here, but one of the things that helps when I put the recess on here, I want to know how deep I can go when I'm hollowing. So I generally put a bead on the bottom edge here, and it's just kind of a visual aid on how deep and how much wood to leave on the inside, because I will have a recess. And I'll do that with a spindle gouge. didn't really need to put the burn lines on there, but I thought it's an added way of decorating, just to demonstrate you can decorate it a little bit. So I'd already set my dividers to the size of these jaws when they're closed, almost a perfect circle. So if I put a mark on the base of this box, then I'll be able to tell exactly where I need to cut. Bring my tool rest up to about center. Important thing to note when doing it this way, we never ever touch the wood with this side. We only touch it with the side that's going down. The wood is turning this way, so we only want the downward side of the wood touching the dividers. If we happen to touch it on this side, the wood will flip it up out of the way. So we have to be very careful that we never touch the wood with this side. We only touch it with this side, and we'll be able to see where the marks are. When we have it centered, the mark that this one makes will line up with this one. There we go. So we'd like to have a little bit of a tenon on the inside, or a bit of an angle, so that it'll fit the profile of the jaws. So we'll take it in about 4 millimeters and slightly undercut it. So at this stage I would probably go ahead and finish the bottom, because I'll probably never want to have to get back to it, although I could if I had to, but it's here, it's available. I could finish it, sand it, and take it right to finish if I wanted to here. But for this example, we'll call that good, and we'll move on to the next step. So we've got a small bead here, here, and a little tiny bead at the top end here as well. we've already got a hole in the open end of the box, and that was for mounting on the woodworm screw. I put a piece of tape on my hand drill here, and I'll see how deep this hole is going. So it looks like we got about another 1/8 of an inch we'd like to go. So I'll turn the speed down about 300 RPM. Put the drill in, and I'll just push it in until it reaches the tape mark. There we go. So now that will actually be our depth gauge when we're hollowing this out. And because this is cross grain, so it's basically bowl turning orientation, I'll use a bowl gouge to hog out a lot of the material. It's like turning a bowl. However, when I get it fairly close to the bottom, I will switch to a box scraper and go straight in and actually establish the wall thickness on there as well. Alrighty. I'll take a bowl gouge. Now I'll switch to a box scraper. And the box scraper, we like to be able to be just a little above center. With box scrapers, when you go in, the thickness of the material will touch on the side of the box, so you have to be high enough so that so the bottom of this tool doesn't rub on the box. Just a little bit more depth in there is required. So basically that box is just about done. It's I could stand a little more sanding. I can do that off the lathe, but this would be easy to sand and easy to finish. You could put a friction finish on. The beauty of it is now that you could take it off the lathe, look at it, measure your thickness. If you think it's still too thick, you can put it back on the lathe and take a little more. We can measure it with the we could take a caliper and measure the distance in here. I did have a set. So what we can do is we can just measure metric here. It's 26 millimeters deep, and we've got 40 millimeters. Let's see if I can get this on camera here. There we go. Okay, yeah, this is the way it will go here. Okay, so I can lay this on here and say we've got 40 millimeters. Inside we've got 26 millimeters. And we're about 3 millimeters deep on the bottom. So we've probably got, we could probably go another, see, 26, 29, we're at, say, 29 millimeters here. We have 40. We could probably go down another 7 or 8 millimeters deep. So let's go ahead and do that. And we'll take a box scraper and go in there and take another 6 or 7 millimeters of material out. When we take the material out of a box like this, we actually reduce the strength, and so the wood tends to move. Then you could probably hear a little bit of a difference in sound. That's always a good time to stop and check and make sure that you're tight. Small cuts. Yeah, that looks pretty good. We'll just give it a quick sanding here, just to knock some of the rough edges off. We won't take it to finish, but we'll just sand it in here a little bit. Still got a bit of rough tear out here, but that can be sanded out. There, now we've got a nice thinner bottom. We're 30 millimeters in, and we were 3 millimeters there, so 3 and 33. There's a 7 millimeter thickness on the bottom. We could even go a little less if we wanted to, but for the sake of this demonstration, I'm going to leave it there, and we'll move on to the next step. The next step involves taking the lid, and we'll make the lid to fit the box. We start with a woodworm screw. So we start with the woodworm screw, and we mount it the same as the other one. Put our spacer ring on there. Okay. Now, we'll take this to round, but we want to take it to round. We want to make sure that it's still bigger than the top of the box. So generally I like to turn this down so that the OD of this is roughly the same as the OD of the base, like that. So if it's down, I've got about almost a quarter of an inch I can take off. And the top of the box then will be the same as the base of the box, and it's just aesthetically pleasing if it has a nice flow. It needs to overhang because this is tapered, because we've tapered the the angle here, then we want to be able to have this overhanging so it looks like a little shed roof. Okay, I'm just going to turn this one. I won't use the tailstock for this one. I'll just try it this way. So it's important to note that the bottom of the top is actually on this side. So this is the side that's going to be resting on top of the box. So we need to put a tenon on this side so that we can actually hold it so we can finish turning the inside. So we'll take the tenon down to something close to a perfect circle, but we'll be taking the tenon on this side will be a tenon, not a recess, and we'll be able to grab it from the outside. So now we can turn it around and grab it on this tenon. So now this is going to be the way the box and the top fit together. You'll notice this rim is still a little wider than this. That's okay, we can trim it down later. What we want to do first and foremost is to establish the tenon that's going to fit inside this this box. So it doesn't have to be a size on size, it has to be a loose fit, but not too loose. So we'll start by putting a small box fitting tenon on there. One way we can measure that to get an idea is to use our dividers. Let's see if I put this on, hopefully we can get this on where the camera can see it. So I can use my dividers to kind of get a rough idea of what the opening is like here, and that's probably pretty close. And we'll set our tool rest at about middle, and this will just give us a bit of an idea. And we'll do a test fit. No, that's not too bad. It's actually not bad at all. It's not too tight. It's not too loose. It'll fit there. So we'll make it a little bit deeper, and then we'll undercut this a little so that the this outside edge will rest on the edge of the box all the way around. If it was perfectly flat and the wood moved, you might see a gap in there, but if you undercut it, the undercut will hang over a little bit and it'll never be noticeable. It's a little bit tight on the bottom end there, so I'll take a little more off. There, that's pretty good. Could take just a touch more off. We don't want it too tight. We want it just to be a nice slick fit. There, that's better. That's a nice loose fit. Easy to put on, easy to take off. Okay, now what we want to do is we want to shape the inside of this thing a little bit, and we'll need to have a way of holding it so we can finish the outside. So one way I like to do it is I like to hollow out the center. We've got this mounting hole that we need to do something with, so we can hollow the lid out till we get rid of this mounting hole. But on the very outside edge, we'll roll a bead. So we roll a bead into the lid, and then when we turn it around, we'll be able to seat our chuck jaws on the inside of that bead, and that'll allow us to open our chuck and hold it in expansion mode so we can finish the top. It's always a good idea to lower the tool rest so that your cutting edge is cutting on center when it's cutting, and it's always a good idea to stop the lathe when you're adjusting it. Anchor the tool, ride the bevel, pick up the cut, and you So now we've made a little bit of a flat in there. It's a little bit of an indent in there. The chuck jaws should be able to seat against this little edge and expand out against this bead, and that'll allow us to hold the lid for turning the outside. Now we can check and see how much more do we want to take off of this rim. We probably could take a little bit more off the rim, but we'll leave that on there until we're hanging on here, and then we can keep on test fitting it until we get it where we like it. And this is totally up to the individual on the design opportunities now are endless. You can Well, I guess we have to make another design opportunity here too. The depth of the hollowing is deeper than the length of these jaws. However, I did notice that if I straighten this outside bore here perfectly straight, we should be able to rest on the outside of the jaws, and that should do us, I think. We can try it. I think the jaws are interfering when I'm trying to put this on the outside edge. These jaws are interfering, so I have to take a little more material out of here. Let's try that. So now we want to try and make a shape on the outside of this that is fairly pleasing. That'll maybe follow this line up, so when we put the flange on here, we take it down a little bit, and we try and continue this line maybe through, or make an OG of it. If we try and come up and make it round, then we just try and follow this line up and make it round, or we can come in this way and call this design break, and then put an OG shape on top. There's lots of opportunities to design the top. We'll try and do just a simple OG shape on this one. Let's try that. So now we want to try and make a shape on the outside of this that is fairly pleasing, that'll maybe follow this line up, so when we put the flange on here, we take it down a little bit and we try and continue this line maybe through, or make an ogee of it. If we try and come up and make it round, then we just try and follow this line up and make it round, or we can come in this way and call this design break and then put an ogee shape on top. There's lots of opportunities to design the top. We'll try and do just a simple ogee shape on this one. We want to check the depth of the hollowing so that we know where the hollowing is, so that we can get an idea of how much material we have out here to so the overall dimension of this is about we've almost got 50 millimeters of thickness here overall. And we're in about 25 millimeters, 26 millimeters deep. So that means we've probably got about 20 millimeters of or more of wood on the top here. We can feel this ogee thickness here is not bad. We still have lots of material we can use here. The depth of this is almost right at this crown, so we could take this straight in and incorporate a knob right in the lid. Well, one of the things we can do too is we can take a look at the shape of this and see what we think. Does it look like it's going to be a pleasing shape? If it's going to be a pleasing shape with these two pieces together, it's always good to just get an eyeball on it and just see what you think. If it looks nice, to me this looks like the top is a little heavy, so I'm going to take more material off there, which is what we wanted to do anyhow. Now we take a look at it again and see what we think. What does it look like? I guess we take a look at it and get a fair idea of whether we like it or not. It's got a nice little fit to it. It's got a nice little knob on the top. I think we're okay with that. I kind of like that. The rim is a little bit big. It's hanging up over the edge a little bit too much. So I think I'll take that back a little bit. We can do that now. These are the finishing touches. Famous last words. If I get a catch now, it might be a little exciting, but that's wood turning. Well, there's a classic mistake that happens once in a while, is I got a little bit too thin. There we go. Sure glad it happened on the dry run and not on the demonstration run, although that would have been something that they could look at too. I may take this along and show them what happens when you screw up. I'll just get another blank and make another lid. Now we take a look at it again and see what we think. What does it look like? I guess we take a look at it and get a fair idea of whether we like it or not. It's got a nice little fit to it. It's got a nice little knob on the top. I think we're okay with that. I kind of like that. The rim is a little bit big. It's hanging up over the edge a little bit too much. So I think I'll take that back a little bit. We can do that now. These are the finishing touches. Famous last words. If I get a catch now, it might be a little exciting, but that's wood turning. Well, there's a classic mistake that happens once in a while. Is I got a little bit too thin. There we go. Sure glad it happened on the dry run and not on the demonstration run, although that would have been something that they could look at too. I may take this along and show them what happens when you screw up. I'll just get another blank and make another lid.